Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Joyce Zunis. You know, we just have to turn on the news or flip open a magazine or peruse the internet, and often what we see and hear is information about the global economic crisis that we're in today, from high unemployment, unstable stock market, ambiguous federal and state policies that point us in a direction that's really creating an uncertain business climate. Local governments today are facing problems, challenges as to how to bring forth new business, how to both to attract and to retain new businesses within their community. Well, today on set, I have someone here that can talk to this very issue because he has brought great business to his own municipality. Our guest today is Jerry Flannery. He was appointed to his current position as city manager of Commerce City in Colorado back in 2007 by unanimous vote by his city council. As city manager, Mr. Flannery serves as chief administrator for the city. He oversees a budget of more than $50 million and is coordinating all facets of municipal operation. Join me by joining and bringing you forth, Mr. Flannery.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, given the economic climate, what are the challenges that are facing business operations today?
Well, I think if you look at specifically the global economy, and over the last 4 years or so, we've seen one of the worst economic downturns since the Great Depression in the 20s. And so I think with as you go down each level to the United States, to Colorado, and then to a local community, each one of those levels have different challenges. And I think when you look at the private sector in how they provide goods and services to the public, their challenges are looking at workforce, how their available capital is achieved. So expanding business, creating new routes for delivery, just looking at how they measure their own customers is a big challenge for them once the economy starts taking that downturn.
Well, you just mentioned sectors. Are all sectors and sizes of businesses affected in this downturn?
I believe so. And we've certainly seen that. Some are probably, I won't say more immune to others, but I think in industry itself, and Commerce City is very blessed with that industrial base, where we're not as susceptible to sales tax. Sales tax typically goes up and down as you look at the sectors of retail. So in regard to industry, we actually in some cases, in very small cases, saw an upward trend with small growth in some industries. But generally, by and large, the retail sector was impacted quite a bit because of less personal spending by income-strapped households.
Well, less spending. How about the federal and state policies? Do they also impact business operation? Absolutely.
I think one of the things that I mentioned earlier was the fact that each level of government feels its own impacts. And typically, with a local city government, municipal government, we're typically on the bottom of the food chain when it comes to taxes and funding mandates. So a lot of times you'll see federal officials say no taxes and then implement impacts and budget cuts. We're talking a lot about that during at the federal level as we speak, and that usually gets passed down to a state government and sometimes to a county and local municipal government.
It's a trickle down.
It is. And so we end up having to look at innovative ways to deal with business, innovative ways to deal with regulation. So specifically to answer your question, I think governments, when they create laws, have to really look at the impacts to the economy and business. A lot of private sector businesses are having to deal with healthcare issues, and so anything that we do on a local government is a direct line to that business, and we deal with them every day.
You deal with them every day. Well, let's talk about the mix of businesses in Commerce City. You just used the word innovative. What unique challenges do you face in your economic environment?
Well, I think specifically we have a significant economic base in industry. So, and in Commerce City, the very name Commerce City, I think, connotates that we have some industrial base. So one of the challenges I think for us is to diversify that base, whether it be additional retail, whether it be high-paying jobs in commercial industry, aerospace, manufacturing. There's a lot of jobs out there that we have a lot of land to put on. So when it comes to how we market the city, we really do a number of things, I think, that are innovative in budget and how we approach the city's budget, as well as approving the city council approved the first economic development strategic plan in the city's history. We just updated our comprehensive plan. We updated our transportation plan, and all these plans come together and actually create a landscape of how development should occur. And so it really allows us to go out and target certain types of businesses to say, we want you to make Commerce City your home.
Well, you've been serving the city of Commerce City for almost 4 years now, since 2007. Have you seen any indication in just the last couple months that the economic climate will improve?
I have. We have, again, I think we've been blessed with a number of major industries and home builders. And so we have an area in the northern part of the city called Reunion. And Reunion is a master plan development that Shea Homes has developed. And so a number of those builders, and I could name a list of them, but in a nutshell, they have created a different product after studying some of the demographics of what age groups they want to target. And then they also look at innovative ways themselves on how to provide for what's coming. So electric outlets for electric vehicles in the garages,
right.
And then many of them have eliminated the formal living room because many people either are in the kitchen in the breakfast area or in the living room with the couches and the TV and that type of thing. So they've created a product that's smaller in square footage but more innovative in how they market it. So that has really caught on. So what we have seen is an uptick in home building, and upwards of close to 300 homes, new home starts, were created in Commerce City in the last year. And so that shows to us basically, I think, that the economy is slowly recovering, that some of the credit blocks are being broken up a little bit and more people are being able to find loans. But I think we're going to recover slowly, and most economists indicate that our recovery will be slow over the next year.
Well, local governments are definitely leading the way to improve business climate. You just gave us an example of some of the innovative planning, even in a home development. Open communication, dedicated programs, inventive ideas, back to that word again, can definitely attract new and also retain existing businesses. Questions that I have for you are, what have you done to improve this business climate? As the city manager, do you have any new tools available to the citizens where they can connect with you, that you have that listening ear?
Yes, actually, over the last 2 years, we've actually implemented a customer response management system. And so many times in a city government, you get phone calls and say, there's a pothole over here and there's, a trash can that's in the street. And some of those still occur and probably should occur. But if it's a longer term type fix, you can go online and actually go to the city's website and actually enter in the issue. And then it'll go straight to a department, and that department director will actually have a report of what those issues are and who they were assigned to, and actually be able to monitor that and go to that employee and say, okay, there's these 10 issues that came up, how many of them are completed, and then you as a customer, as a citizen, can actually track those online and see where the actual issue is.
So there's definitely a listening ear at Commerce City. Well, let's kind of wrap this back around to the Economic Development Division. What type of programs and services do you provide under that covering to your citizens?
Well, we have 4 staff members in our Economic Development Division and the director reports to me, and she's a top-notch person, and her staff are absolutely top-notch, and when they look at how they provide service, it's a lot of discussion and communication with the business community. So we formed a business advancement task force, which we can get into in a little while, but we also formed a business advisory committee so that we gave some of the businesses a voice. So retaining and you hear retaining and retention a lot, and retaining is keeping those businesses that are there in the city and trying to make sure that they don't leave for whatever reason.
Right.
And then attraction is going out and getting new businesses to come into the city so that we grow our base. So they do all of that, and they really are your customer service representative when it comes to business. And for different sections of business, they are the go-to staff members that help those individual businesses either get established or keep them in process of getting whatever.
Great program and service, to your residents. What role and how can public-private partnerships benefit economic development in Commerce City?
What role can private partnerships?
Public and private partnerships.
So both. We actually have a city hall that's a result of a public-private partnership with the Kroenke Sports Entertainment.
Okay.
So our Civic Center is on land that used to be part of the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge. And so the Dick's Sporting Goods Stadium is there on that land as well. So we actually joined in with Stan Kroenke and his organization to form that and go to a bond for the payment of those bonds through the city, and they were approved. So we do a lot of those types of things. We work with the private sector in looking at innovative ways to provide services. We have a decent amount of elderly in Commerce City in population, and so we look at volunteer programs through private organizations or whatever to go out and break up ice on their driveways and those types of things so that they don't have to risk life and limb to go out and get rid of the snow.
Appreciated, is it not, in the winter we've been having this year? Well, what has been the business response to the city's activities?
I think it's been very positive. I think in general businesses want to get their business done. I mean, and it sounds simple, but it's the less interference they can receive by whatever, if it's the government or not, and especially if we're there to provide a service to them, then I think they really appreciate that. And I'm not here to say that we are perfect, but I think what we've done is we've said we recognize that there's a bad economy, we recognize that we're trying to come out of that, and we want to work with you on solutions on how to do that. So we've really tried to listen to that community, and I think they've been very happy with that. And overall, I think it's moving in the right direction, and we're going to continue to have those conversations in public forums as well as private conversations.
Well, Jerry Flannery, it sure sounds like things are moving in the right direction in Commerce City. Well, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break and continue this conversation.
President Clinton and I appealed to you for help with the recovery from Hurricane Katrina. We're here now with a different request.
Events like hurricanes can be devastating, but there are things you can do to limit the effects of all types of emergencies.
Visit ready.gov to learn how to take simple steps to prepare for emergencies.
A little advanced planning can help keep you and your family safe.
Thank you.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home, where I belong.
It's always nice to come home, but many Americans are at risk of foreclosure and losing their homes. Making Home Affordable from the U.S. government has already helped over 1 million struggling homeowners like these. The sooner you act, the better chance we can help you.
I'm home where I belong.
Hi, welcome back. Well, we're sitting here talking with Jerry Flannery. He is the city manager of Commerce City, and we're discussing economic development, attracting and retaining businesses in challenging economic times. Well, you know, Jerry, business incentives have been a tool for a long time and, you know, luring those companies to new locales. Public sectors also offer incentives, and they provide a little bit more of a competitive economic climate for businesses. A lot of people support this effort of bringing forth and enticing rewards to businesses for risk-taking, moving into a new community. You know, but there's also critics who question this strategy, the deals, and the potential loss in the long-term tax benefits. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about what is a business incentive?
Sure. An incentive really is an award or a reward for attracting a business or to keep a business. And I think it can come in the form of rebates. It can come in the form of different service levels for employees. There's a number of different ways to do it. And you hear a lot about it. And I know that there's a pro and a con to each one of these things. But I think when you have an economy as bad as we've had, you have to think out of the box. And looking at how you deal with those issues, you have to look at innovation. And it's not just saying let's go back to the old formula of creating incentives, but what do the community of businesses want? What do the citizens want? What does the city council want? And how does that match with what we want to do? So I think looking at incentives and creating them is a dialogue between all of those parties and all of those stakeholders so that you come up with the best and most innovative, and I think we have.
Well, you just mentioned thinking out of the box, and you've already given us a few examples earlier of some of these incentives, and of course, obviously, just having that listening ear is a good starting point, but can you give me some examples of what this would look like?
Sure. I think for specifically, we looked at all across the spectrum. So we looked at home builders, which you don't find a lot of communities looking at that specifically, and looking at a $1,500 rebate per house, so that there's an incentive for them to look at and maybe even market themselves to the community and say, hey, there's a rebate here. We looked at if you're going more green energy, that we would even look at additional type incentives for home builders. And then in industry and commercial, we looked at different rebate systems, but also looked at if you were going to build something green, or if you were on the cusp. And this really was the reason. We like to look at it as our own economic stimulus package, where we said, you know, if you're going, even as a resident, if you want to add a patio and you're on the edge and you're not sure your budget's going to make it, if this program gives you the incentive because you know you're going to get a rebate as a household for, let's say, $300 of a $5,000 addition, well, that may be enough for you to say, I think I'm going to build that addition.
So this is an example of how these programs typically work.
Correct.
So talk to me about a couple of the other ones, because you mentioned quite a few there.
There's quite a few. We didn't leave anything out. We really wanted to go through the industry and commercial and residential. So if you brought in 50 new jobs or more, then we gave you a certain rebate per employee for doing that. We're trying to continue to develop new innovative ways of dealing with that, of maybe if you bring in employees, that we somehow connect the business with the home builders so that they all know that they can benefit from this same program over the community. So it's you know, I think one of the things we've looked at is half off building fees for certain things, a certain development. Most commercial businesses that have come in over the last year, in the year that we offered this incentive program, we've offered about $2.5 million in incentives, but our tax base grew $30 million. So I challenge the critics to
there you go.
say, what's wrong with that?
I was just going to go there, because if you're offering incentives, it sounds like your tax base, your revenue would have been impacted, but It has not.
So these are revenues that wouldn't have existed without this program.
Okay.
So
right.
you create the program, it gets people to maybe lean off the fence and do some activity or build businesses or build homes or do whatever they were going to do when they weren't going to do it.
So this is an example of a benefit
Yes.
that you're reaping as a result of offering this type of program. Talk to me about a couple other benefits that have been derived from these programs.
Well, I think we've added about 450 new jobs to Commerce City in that year. You hear about it on the national level, you hear about it on the state level, but we're doing it, and we have a program that we're very confident in. We feel that these jobs are high paying. Many of them are high paying jobs where they're going to buy houses in the city that help create that cycle of government. So, cycle of business. And one of the companies we brought in recently is Cummins Engines, and you see the commercials all the time for the Hemis and all that. Well, that company is putting their Rocky Mountain headquarters in Commerce City, and there's 7 other headquarters in Commerce City along with them. And we brought them in, and we actually won that competition, if you will, from Salt Lake City, Utah. And that's 100 jobs to start with that are high paid, over the county median income.
Right.
And so there's incentive programs that we got from the county through the state to help us with that development. And our goal, and this is the full cycle, is that those individuals come in, say, hey, we like this area, we want to move here. They buy a house, that helps the economy, and it's a whole cycle.
Well, let's talk about that full cycle. What kind of safeguards are in place for local governments who put in place, what is put in place to protect the taxpayers?
I think you have to be responsible as a government. You have to be fiscally conservative. And I guess being the first generation of Irish immigrants, I think I had that kind of trained into me. And when I look at anything we do, we have to do it very sound fiscally,
yes.
and that we measure it. And then what we do is we bring it to the legislative body, which is the city council, and those individuals get to review exactly what the proposal is. They're elected by the public, and so the public can measure that as well and say, we like this or we don't.
Well, we've got about 5 more minutes left in the show, and I really want to talk about what you guys have done quite successfully in this last year. A new program was introduced last June. Talk to us a little bit about what that was and what it has done for Commerce City.
Well, I think, as we talked about, the economy being the worst in probably a century, or almost a century, and how we approached the business community was we heard a lot of pro and con. We weren't sure what to necessarily believe. So we actually sent out 2,000 letters to our businesses in the community and said, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? And, a series of other ones. Are you going to add employees? Are you looking at capital expenditures this year? And just get an idea of that. So we had a number, about a little over 100 responses to that. And so we built up a report on that, and then we invited them to what we called a business summit. And so we sat down with about 100 businesses that came to Commerce City, and basically I presented that report to them, but also gave them a microphone, and each one of those 100 businesses that were represented had about 3 minutes to tell me exactly what was on their mind.
Wow.
So some of it was pretty strong. I want that, I expected that, and wanted the honest dialogue, because that's where we get the good information to say, here's what we can do to address that. And so after that, we, at the end of that meeting, I said, obviously there's a number of businesses here that want to, they're here because they want us to hear their voice. So I'd like a group of volunteers to help us draw up an incentive package. And so we all sat down and met over the next 4 months, and that was January of 10. And so in May of 10, we presented an incentive package that I described a little bit earlier to the City Council, and the City Council unanimously approved it, said this is great stuff, and it ran from June to December of 10, and then in December they extended it for another 6 months to May of 11.
Okay, well, this is a great example, it sounds like, of what a robust incentive plan can do for, kind of clearing out and leveling that playing field when you're attracting new businesses and also keeping your existing companies. I'd like for you to elaborate about why other municipalities really need to learn from the experience, because talk to us first about how successful this program has been. We just have a little bit of time. And then why other municipalities really need to take a look at this incentive program.
This program has been recognized nationally, and I'm just so thankful that you all recognized it and asked us to come in to talk about it, because that's the type of recognition that we don't necessarily seek, but we know that it will come if we do good things. And so when I want to talk to other cities, I would say listen to your business community, have the dialogue with them, and try to engage them in a way that is pro-business. And my philosophy is the more successful they are, the more successful we are as a community. And so all of those things, because they become positive forces in the community where they actually help out different charities, food banks, and the like, and they become a great corporate partner, and they actually enjoy working with us rather than the standard, oh, it's just the government coming in to do whatever.
How can businesses take advantage of your incentive program? Do you still have this particular program in place?
It's still in place. The council is probably going to be deliberating whether or not to extend it. We need to provide them a report on that and show them what exactly is going on. If and when the economy fully recovers, we'll see what we do from there. But I think it's a dynamic process, so the business community will see that and work with us to make sure that we continue to implement new changes.
Lots of new changes for Commerce City and the community, because I started talking about at the top of the show about this is a global economic crisis, and you sure have brought solution for Commerce City. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, and thanking Jerry Flannery, Commerce City City Manager, for joining us today and talking about how to expand your community through business. And thank you again for joining us here on Joy in Our Town for great pertinent information we provided you today. And if you're interested in finding out about our other programs, don't hesitate to give us a call. Thanks again.